Allora, Mac. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental health. In the conversation on mental health, I want to talk about how you deal with feeling overwhelmed. And so if you are someone who is big on growth, big on development, big on challenging yourself and pushing beyond your comfort zone, you're going to have moments and experiences that bring about feeling overwhelmed. Like, you know what, this is a lot. Like, is this something that I can handle? And I think that it really does enable a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, and it also enables you to really focus on that self-management, self-mastery piece. I am someone who has felt overwhelmed quite a bit throughout my life. It's just kind of like part of my emotional footprint. Feeling overwhelmed is kind of part of the package, but it's something that I can manage very well because I recognize that it's not always signaling the same thing. Not just because I feel overwhelmed does it mean that it's too much for me to handle. Not every time that I feel overwhelmed does it mean that I actually am overwhelmed. Sometimes you can feel overwhelmed when you're hungry. You can feel overwhelmed when you're tired. I mean, sometimes it's a cue that signals something else, but when you take the opportunity to go inward, you can really address the root cause of feeling overwhelmed. I think overwhelmed is a very complex emotion. It can generate from a myriad of different things that happen in the environment and also internally. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I can identify and manage some of the causes for my feeling overwhelmed so that I can keep pushing forward and keep pushing on. So, overwhelmed is something that I think is easier to identify when you're doing something physical. And so when I started really focusing on my fitness journey, so I've always been a big yogi. I've done yogi since my first career out of high school. So since I've been doing yoga since about 19 as a means of just kind of staying in shape and looking lean essentially. But I started really being mindful of my fitness when I started doing Spartan races. And to do a Spartan race, there was a lot of training and I would work with a team of people, and I didn't want to let my team down. I wanted to really be part of this group who all together we were going to successfully complete the Spartan race. And I'll put some pictures here for you to see us successfully crossing the finish line. But these are really intensive experiences where you have to rely on each other, where there's a lot of different obstacles that you're going through, a lot of different hurdles, and there's lots of moments of silence where you're just kind of alone with your own thoughts. And often during those stretches of time, it's like when your body is like physically asking for a break. And so when you realize that your mental limitations are not anywhere near when you get the signal that you've reached your limit, then you start to recognize that there's different ways, different strategies and coping mechanisms that can enable you to kind of reach through that perceived barrier. Our brains are very self-preserving. They like to keep us comfortable and cozy. When you're pushing beyond your comfort zone, then that's obviously like a completely contradictory goal. And so what I learned, especially when it was a case that I was doing these obstacle courses runs, not even just training, but like actually doing the course, was that when things felt too big, like when it felt like it was a lot and that I couldn't handle it, and that my body couldn't physically carry me a step forward, I would look down. So rather than looking at the course ahead and all of the obstacles that were in front of me and all of the people who were in front of me and just all of the stimuli that was telling me like, hey, like this is too much for you to handle, I would narrow my focus downwards. And so I would look down and my focus wasn't on everything ahead of me, it was on making sure that I was taking the next step. It was just step by step. And when I felt like, hey, I can handle that, I would look a little bit further ahead of me and then back out to sort of the broad view of things. And I realized that this is something that I was able to adapt into my life. When it was the case that I felt overwhelmed just by the goals I was approaching or the challenges that I was facing, it's really about adjusting your focus. And a lot of the times when you take the opportunity to adjust your focus, it's like, okay, this might be like a big mouth to chew, but I can take this bit. Like I can take this step by step. But if you break up the sum into its particular parts, then anything that makes you feel overwhelmed is still so surmountable. And so in life, when you have like a big stretch goal, like I remember when my big stretch goal was to go to my business school, like the first thing was figuring out, well, how do I prep for the GMAT? Like what courses are the right courses to take? Only need to make the decisions one decision at a time, or as many decisions as you feel you're equipped to make at a time. And oftentimes when you're focusing on a stretch goal, life doesn't pause and give you like a break for you to achieve it. Like you have to manage the now while you're pushing towards the future. And you can do that at your own pace. But when it is the case that life is requiring you to slow down, by all means slow down. But sometimes life is signaling you to focus on a need that you might be neglecting for the sake of pursuing a goal. And so one of the things that I've learned very early in my life as I focus on goal setting is that you cannot set up a goal and not think about rest. So sometimes we get so excited about achieving a specific goal, like we're like full steam ahead, like let's get this done. But for midterm, long-term goals, you're gonna burn yourself out. You're gonna burn out of steam. You need to learn the strategy of endurance. And there is a strategy of endurance because you have to be meticulous and methodical about how you treat your daytime hours, your nighttime hours, your rest. And this is something that I can master for a period of time for a stage and phase of my life. But then like different factors get introduced and you're still figuring out like how to master all of these moving pieces. And so it's really about introspection, about reflection, and recognizing, okay, if I'm feeling overwhelmed because of all of these different factors in my life that I want to be part of my life, then it's how I'm looking at it. And if there's an issue with how I'm looking at it, well, how can I reframe it so that it's digestible? How can I break it up into specific discrete pieces so that I recognize like, hey, like this is all within my realm of ability to achieve. And we can always do that with everything and anything that's in front of us. And I think it's easier to manage that when it is the case that it's just kind of you, yourself, and you pushing towards a specific goal. But how I know this is possible, even for the things that we don't ask for, like the challenges that life puts in front of us, is when we focus on like what can you actually do with the tools that you have available with you right now, instead of like what the situation requires. When you focus on what it is that you can actually do in this here and now period of time, then you're actually doing that step by step. You're taking your focus, you're moving it from the big picture, which can be daunting, and you're focusing in front of you. Like, what is this next step that I can take will put me in a position where I'm a little bit closer to what it is I'm going for? And so for those goals that cannot be achieved in leaps and strides, where it is really patience, it's time, it's endurance, it's keeping yourself motivated, keeping yourself on course, forgiving yourself because you're going to fail. And so a lot of the things that I've done, like now, like I'm very much well into like building out Project Purpose, and it's like all of these little pain points that need to be addressed, but it's like, okay, well, I can just like do it in one big go, or I can be methodical, I can be reflecting, and I can think about like how best do I approach this so I'm like managing my energy carefully, because it's not just me building Project Purpose alone anymore. Like it's me, but Project Purpose is my partner, it's the life that we are building, it's my career. There's so many different balls that I'm juggling, but I can still juggle all of them if I'm doing it intelligently. And being overwhelmed is just a signal to me that maybe there's something about my strategy that can adjust, that can change. There's something about how I'm managing my time, managing my energy, managing my expectations mostly, that could adjust and that could really use some refinement so that I'm not working against the grain of myself. I'm working with myself. I'm aligned, I'm centered, I'm grounded, and I'm pushing forward. And that's not something that often can happen overnight, right? That's like seriously focusing on the introspection, reflecting, building out a plan, revising that plan, recognizing that like everything is subject to revision and rework. Like we're not going to achieve a perfect balance the first time around. Like it's going to require specific periods of refinement, but being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed will get us there. So sometimes overwhelmed is like a physical cue, like I am feeling like this is too much because I need water, because I need to sleep, I need a nap. I'm feeling like this is too much because I need a walk. Maybe my body needs me to take a moment to just focus on like getting that blood flowing through my body. But sometimes it's because you're just looking at it from an angle where it feels daunting, like it's like overwhelming. And so rather than looking at the big picture, you focus on what's right in front of you, or you focus like what can you do in the here and now with the tools that you have here and the now, with the time you have here and now, that will help you push forward. And these are the strategies that I take, that I always am taking every day, so that when it is the case that I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's not a signal that this is the end of the game, that this is where I tap out, that this is where like, you know what, like maybe I need to rethink my life plans. Absolutely not. I know that my goals are very much in line with like my desires. They're very much in line with what motivates me, with what gives me a sense of meaning, what gives me a sense of fulfillment. But they're big, lofty goals. And so because they're big and lofty goals, it means I need to manage myself, my expectations, and my own failures, because with big goals, like you experience personal failures almost on a daily basis. You manage all of that so that you're not working against yourself, so that you're always putting yourself in a position where you're positioning yourself for success in the little ways that matter as well as the big ways that matter. So I want to have that conversation today around that, because I think feeling overwhelmed can be something that can feel like really detrimental if you don't have the tools to manage it. And so these are the tools that I have learned, that I have honed in on throughout my life. I think it's just so important that, you know, when the big picture seems like a lot, it doesn't mean that it's not the right picture for you to focus on. It just means that maybe you need to change and adjust your frame. You need to narrow your vision a little bit more to like what's right in front of you, focus on what's right in front of you until you have the bandwidth to look at the big picture again. And maybe you can push forward with the full picture in mind, and that's not something that overwhelms you. But the moment that it starts to, then all you need to do is bring that focus inward. In any case, that was the feedback that I wanted to share with you today. Some food for thought for you. Now, if I have piqued your interest, if you want to have more conversations around self-mastery and how you manage those big emotions that come up here and now, depending on what it is you're going through, then I do invite you to join into our live events. We do host live events at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So definitely be sure to take a look at that. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then you probably want to take a look at our package plans. It makes it a little bit more cost effective. We also have something for everyone. So we do offer parent-child workshops who focus on cultivating that leadership quotient in children. Now, these workshops focus on 4 core modules that we believe form the basis of leadership in every person, to focus on that intellectual development and character development as well. And so these focus on self-efficacy, compassion, autonomy, and self-concept. I think if we have a strong base of those things, and everyone's equipped at least with the baseline fundamentals to be a leader in their own right. So that was the feedback that I had from you today. So food for thought for you. Now we are on the road to 1K. So if you are still here and this was something that you found was helpful, then definitely follow us. Every follow counts. Leave a like. It is really so helpful. You have no idea. And join our community of game changers. And I look forward to chatting with all of you again very soon. We'll talk to you later.